Greetings, campers, theater, film, television lovers, and for you political junkies, today may not be the day for you. Anyway, welcome to The World According to Yoni. In case you've forgotten, I am your host, Yoni Martin, and I'm very glad to have you here with me today. We're doing something a little different today in that we're doing the second part of an interview that I started on last week's episode. Why, I hear you ask, is it taking you 2 episodes to do this interview? Well, I spent 2 hours with one of my acting heroes, Louis J. Stadlen. And as long as he was willing to talk to me, I wasn't going to stop talking to him. So we had quite a time. If you missed that episode or are new to the show, you have to go back and watch episode 23 with part 1 of my interview with Louis, because you've missed so much. It was wonderful, including a clip from a Broadway play with Nathan Lane and Louis. And if you see it, I don't have to say anything else about Louis's talent. It speaks for itself. The man is amazing. He's an amazing talent. He's also written this book, Acting Foolish. I'm holding it up for those of you who are not watching but listening. It's called Acting Foolish by Louis J. Stadlen. It's his autobiography. It's one of the most honest theatrical autobiographies I've ever read, because Louis is one of the most honest people in a business that does not breed honesty. So it's a wonderful book, and you really need to read it. It's fun. Also, for those who are wondering what happened to all the politics, I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show. But in the meantime, I would like to present part 2 of my 2-hour interview with my new friend and acting hero, Louis J. Stadlen.
Thank you.
I want to switch gears for a second, because your stint in television, I was so excited when I heard you were going to be doing Benson. You know, I was like, I had been waiting for you to really get noticed the way I thought you deserved to be noticed. And I figure, well, a television series, that's going to happen. Didn't quite happen the way I had hoped, and I'm sure not the way you hoped.
Well, you know, you make transitions in your career, and you because my father had kind of made a real success not only in voiceovers but also on television. I guess there's always been something in me in which I didn't want to compete with the success of my father, but I never wanted to be on television. Now, you know, I see some of these fabulous things on Netflix and all these great actors. You know, television has evolved beyond the stupid, you know, and I hated Benson. I didn't sign my contract. They give you a 6-year contract. I didn't sign it until the 5th episode. I was so uncomfortable, and the people I was working for, they professed to be like professors of comedy, and you know, nobody would laugh at anything if there wasn't a laugh track. I just hated the experience, and in terms of celebrity, I remember going to Albuquerque. I must have gone to like a Burger King or something. And when the woman saw me, who was giving me the hamburger, she went, "Oh my God, you're." And I said, "Yeah, I'm the asshole on Benson." It's not like they say, "Oh, Louis Stadlen." They
no,
say,
I mean, it was a thankless role. I mean,
it was not only thankless, but it it was insulting. And I thought, I'm 32 years old, I think. I'll be typed as this type of person for the rest of my life. Now, I didn't realize at the time that that's what most actors want, because if you have a signature personality role, you just keep getting cast over and over again. But that's not anything that ever interested me. I always want to turn the screw just a little so that I'm a different person. That to me is the challenge, to be an interpretive artist, not to just make one interpretation and play that interpretation for the rest of your life. So it was a very unhappy experience. And I ran into Jimmy Noble, who played the governor, who was, spent, before he got that job, 30 years in regional theater, playing a lot of really good parts. And we were auditioning for like at an off-Broadway play. And I said to him, so Jimmy, are you a millionaire? He said, no, I'm not a millionaire. I put my 2 kids through college. That was good. I'm comfortable. But it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm giving up this incredible experience in which I will be financially secure for the rest of my life. I don't think that actors want to be secure for the rest of their lives. If they wanted to be financially secure for the rest of their lives, they would become attorneys, or they would become doctors, or, it's...
Hey, I'm not financially secure for the week, let alone the rest of my life, so...
At any rate, I've had some regrets. I've done some stupid things. Well, Nathan is always saying to me that, your whole life, you've run in the opposite direction of fame. But that certainly was a decision that I made that I never regretted.
Well, interestingly, at least in looking at it, the character you played in the film In and Out, the teacher who wanted to be the teacher of the year, it was, in certain respects, a similar character to the guy in Benson, except, of course, it was a much better written, the film was much better written than the TV series, and you had some phenomenal actors around you. But I don't know how you feel about it, but...
No, that's the way I would be cast in films. In films, either the camera loves you and you have that special thing in which you are able to reveal your soul in front of the camera. That's what movie stars are all about. And I never had that. And I never really felt comfortable working in front of a camera. So my performances on film they're good, but I'd like to think that many, many other actors could have done it just as well or better. And I don't feel that way about my stage performances. I think that I have given a number of definitive performances and roles that are done over and over again. Either you're cast as the handsome guy who kisses the girl, or you're cast as the jerk. And that's the category that I filled out, the jerk. And then again, because I like to play characters that are not lovable, it kind of flies in the face of what somebody who has sex appeal on the screen has that I don't have. I'll tell you a story. When I was doing The Verdict, I had a great scene with Paul Newman, in which I had 95% of the dialogue. And it was complicated. We had a startup. We did it at City Hall in Boston, but it was supposed to be a hospital. We walked down the stairs. We went through a hallway. We went down another flight of stairs. I got into a Jaguar. And Paul Newman is, trailing behind me, and I do most of the talking. And Sidney Lumet did a couple of shots, long shots, and And then when it was over, he said, I'm not going to do any close-ups. I've got it. And I said to Paul Newman, oh, I'm so relieved we don't have to do any close-ups. And he looked at me like I was insane, because life is close-ups. That's what film actors, that's their life. That's their livelihood. And all I was worried about was, if we do it again, I'll screw up the dialogue, which is not a good way of approaching being in a movie.
Did you do, with Sidney, did you do more than 4 takes on anything?
No, I don't think so.
He's the first
Serpico. No.
He's the first film director I ever worked with. Never more than 4 takes. I have never seen as well-oiled a machine as Sidney Lumet and his crew. And I thought he was amazing.
I'll tell you another story about The Verdict and about great directing and about performances come when you recognize what you're doing that is active instead of just the lines. Because Stella Adler said, there's nothing deader than lines on a piece of paper. You have to invent your own play beneath the lines. Sidney would rehearse the screenplay like it was a play, which most film directors do not. And we were at the 890 studios rehearsing The Verdict, and there I am in this room, with James Mason and, Charlotte, what's her name, the magnificent, who played
Charlotte Rampling?
Charlotte Rampling, and Jack Warden and Paul. And so we would run through it like a run through of a play. And because this was going to be a long tracking shot, Sidney had Paul Newman and I just walking around the rehearsal studio, walking around. And I kept wanting to make eye contact with Paul Newman. First of all, I was thrilled to be working with Paul Newman, but also I wanted to be respectful of Paul Newman. And Sidney kept saying, no, don't look at him. Just keep walking. Let him catch up to you. You're a famous surgeon and he's a drunk, and don't look at him. And I did it a few times, but I just couldn't resist, kind of holding back. And finally, Sidney stopped, walked over to me, took me aside and said, look, you're having an affair with a 25-year-old intern in Cambridge. You have 3 hours to get to Cambridge, sleep with her, go back to the hospital for your next operation. And I never looked back at Paul Newman again.
Hey, motivation is really good. That's, he was wonderful.
Great director.
I agree. Where was I going with it? I'm so all over the map because I think of all the different things you've done, and that, like, how were you nominated for 2 or 3 Tony Awards? There seems to be some conflict as to which the number was.
2, but if all the misinformation that they write about me on the internet, if that goes into the ether as correct information, we're in real trouble. 2, not 3. 1 for Candide and 1 for Funny Thing Happened on the
Way They Form. Yeah, and I saw Joe Morton in Raisin. I saw Alfred Drake in Gigi. I did not see Christopher Plummer do Cyrano. But I'm sorry, I cannot imagine for the life of me that, as much as I like Christopher Plummer as an actor, or liked him, that his performance in a musical could have come anywhere near what you did in Candide. I've been fuming about that since 1974, just so you know.
Yeah, well, I probably should have won. But listen, there's no problem losing to Christopher Plummer, who is truly a great actor.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why none of us won, none of the actors won, was because Hal Prince, instead of allowing the Tony Award voters into the theater like everybody else, he scheduled a ninth performance of the week on a Sunday night, and he invited all the Tony Award voters as the audience. Well, not only were we exhausted, but you could imagine we were also very nervous because we were singing for our supper, right?
Right.
And of course, he won, and I think you Wheeler won for best libretto.
He did.
But none of the actors won. Maureen Brennan, Mark Baker, June Gable, and myself, we didn't win. But about a week later, I was invited to, one of these luncheons, and I was seated next to Christopher Plummer. And Christopher Plummer said to me, "You're Stadlen, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He was, at the time, he was in the Good Doctor. That the Cyrano had closed. And he said, "I just want you to know that I was like, walking, around the theater on the Sunday matinee before the Tony Awards." And he said, "Little prick, Stadlen's going to win my Tony Award." So I appreciate that, Mr. Plummer.
Well, he should have been right, but as you say, it's Christopher Plummer. If you're going to lose to someone, hey, not bad.
Listen, it's all bullshit. And I have to tell you, the second time I was nominated, I was up against a 10-year-old. That was one of the people that I was up against. And I was up against a guy from Rent who was making his, I think, professional debut playing a transvestite hooker who dies of AIDS from Rent. I had no chance of winning that, but I remember going to the Tony Awards that first time with Candide, and I walked in there innocently thinking this was an evening about me and the people who were nominated. No, it was a big, gigantic commercial for television. And the nicest thing was that I ran into Henry Fonda, I had worked with Henry Fonda 2 years before in a fabulous production of The Time of Your Life. And Henry was so kind and nurturing. And I remember that night, we embraced, and he was telling me how proud he was, that I got nominated. And that's what the evening was about. But it wasn't about me. And then there was a party at the end, after the Tony Awards, and I walked by Hal Prince, who was enraged that Christopher Plummer had won. He was pontificating to some friends. And mistakenly, I thought that he was angry that he won because he thought I should have won. And so I said, "Oh, that's all right, Hal." And he looked at me and he said, "No, this is not about you. You paid your dues." He said, "This is just about Christopher Plummer's performance being antithetical to the spirit of musical comedy," or some crap like that.
You won't remember this, but the first time I met you at the Irish American Theater, where you and J.K. first seeing you and J.K. Simmons coming up the stairs toward me was like, I was like, oh my God, I was awestruck. And then you talked to me, and I told you how I felt about Candide, and you told me how you felt about Hal Prince. And I was like, wow. This guy really says what's on his mind. He doesn't hold back.
I have to tell you, when Hal Prince died, though, I was very affected by it. I mean, there's no question. Hal Prince is a great theater man and brilliant producer, artistic producer. I had my problems with him, and I was a kid, and I was under the illusion that my birthright was to do a Broadway show every year. And that was very naive. And he wasn't very nice to me. And I took him on, which was really stupid. And, today, of course, even if he treated me exactly the same way, I would have found a way to deal with it. But that takes a lifetime to gain that type of wisdom / exhaustion,
Well, you were a kid in your 20s. I mean, we all, when we were in our 20s, thought we were infallible. Oh, if I knew then what I know now. Go to Forum, because the work with you, Nathan, Jerry Zaks. I met Jerry Zaks the one time I met him. I was coming out of the creative acting company where I was teaching, and up the street was the Terry Schreiber studio, and I think he was going up there. And I literally met him in the middle of 27th Street. And I was just trying to say how much I admired his work and how great I thought he was. And he was very sweet. He was very nice. And he's like, if we stand here, we're going to get run over. But you guys together, what you guys have created. I mean, you as Senex, it's like, I don't know, it was like maybe part part Voltaire, part David Burns. It was just hysterical. I mean, it really was. And Zach's got me because that moment in Comedy Tonight where the curtain goes down and comes up, and it's the dramatic woo.
Medea.
I was like, oh, that's brilliant. That's just brilliant.
Well, the thing about Jerry is, one of the things about Jerry is that when he does a revival, he honors the original production. He doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, which Broadway has become, and it's deeply disturbing, I find. He tinkered with that first act. That was what he added to Comedy Tonight, which made it even better.
Yeah.
But he honored the spirit of George Abbott and Jerry Robbins. You can't do anything better than Jerry Robbins. You can't. And if you can't do it better than Jerry Robbins, then don't do it. Don't change it, Yeah. He was great, but, I have to tell you, he wanted to cut Impossible, the number Impossible. He came to me in preview. He said, I'm going to cut that number. I went, no, you can't cut that number. He said, no, I'm going to cut it. He said, it slows things up. I said, it doesn't. Just please, and maybe it was just to egg me on to do it better, whatever. We didn't cut it, thank God. But, and then I said to him, I was 3 weeks into rehearsal, and I said, am I just doing a cheap imitation of David Burns? And Jerry said, the sad thing is that there's me, you, and 100 other people who even remember who David Burns was.
Yeah.
And then I said, but, I feel like all I'm doing is all night long, all I care about is getting laid. And he said, sometimes it's as simple as that.
I found it often is as simple as that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, you love being on the road. How difficult is it to maintain a relationship when you're always on the road?
Well, 2 marriages ended because I was on the road. So it's difficult to maintain a relationship. I love being on the road. I love being on the road much more than doing a Broadway show. In Broadway show, there's like this, what did Morse Hart say in a conspiracy? There's this little conspiracy in which you want the show to be a success, and your whole life revolves around getting good reviews. And then if you get good reviews, you're trapped in a hit, and it's a job, and you're punching a clock, basically. But when you do a road company, you're going from city to city, theater to theater, different audience, collective audience response, which is amazing how different cities react to the same piece. If you play Baltimore, the reaction will be 90% different than if you go 35 miles south and you play Washington, D.C., because of the demographics of the population. Yeah. I love hotels. I don't like being in cities for too long. A lot of people just say, oh, good, we're here for 3 months. No, I like 3 weeks basically, and I'm ready to move on. I love the travel. I love the idea that we're a touring company and that there's an intimacy that takes place. One of the things that I find so much fun, when I just did Hello, Dolly, that was the last gig I had. That was really great. And most of the cast were very young. And when you're my age and you're touring, it's a very different experience than when you're young. You basically have to take that, 3 o'clock nap, and you can't go around, searching for the Grand Canyon. To see the young people pulling their luggage on wheels as they get to the gate to take the plane, and seeing that they've been up most of the night partying, and you find out a lot about people. And I love the road.
My two experiences, which were the beginning of my career, were national tours. And we never saw the cities we were in because, we'd go back, do the show, go back to the hotel. Okay, is there a mall or is there someplace we can go? And that was pretty much it. So it was all of us together, which can be fun, but both times when I came back to New York, I felt like I had to start over because I'd been gone for a year and nobody remembered who the hell I was, including my manager at the time. You've had a lot of agents, according to your book. Not all
a lot of agents.
And I've had similar experiences. I remember the best agent I had. She said, "I love your work. I'm just not sure what to do with you." And at the time, when I didn't have the beard, I said, "How about a young Dustin Hoffman?" And she's like, yes, that's perfect. And I'm sitting here thinking, boy, if I have to tell her this, we're going to have a problem. And so leaving New York for a year for me, because I hadn't been established, coming back, it was like, get me out on the road again, because at least I'm working. But it's funny because I was doing all this reading last night, all the people you've worked with, people I know, and the interconnections are astounding, because Jerry Zaks played Kenickie in Grease on Broadway. He followed, I don't know if he immediately followed, but he followed a guy named Danny Jacobson. Danny Jacobson is now a writer producer in LA. He's been doing sitcoms for years. He did the last Odd Couple with Matthew Perry. But Danny grew up 3 blocks from me, and he was a little older, but I knew Danny. And then of course there were the Graff sisters. Eileen and Randy were both in Grease. And then my friend Lori, who is their cousin, she ended up in Grease. And then everybody worked with everybody else. It's amazing. You worked with Andrea Martin, who in the revival of Candide, which wasn't a really great revival, but in the revival played June Gable's part. And so here you've worked with both of these people. It is such a small world. I mean,
well, that's what young actors have to understand, that when you first break in, you figure you have to know everybody. But eventually what happens, if you work a lot, you work with the same people over and over again. I've done 6 projects with Scott Rudin, 7 times with Jerry Zaks, 8 times with Nathan Lane. You don't have to work with everybody. They have their favorites out there. You just have to be a part of a group in which they trust that you're going to come through for them. And Jerry, I think Jerry would want to cast me in a lot of other things, but he's overruled because I'm not a big enough celebrity. Hello, Dolly is a perfect example. I thought, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to play Vandergelder on Broadway with Bette Midler. First of all, I've known Bette for 35 years. We were both from the Fiddler on the Roof days. Mm-hmm. She's a star. They don't need a celebrity to play Vandergelder. She's the one who's going to sell all the tickets. The last 2 Broadway shows I've done was for Scott Rudin. Scott Rudin loves me. And then I don't get it. And then when they leave, again, I don't get it. When they bring in Bernadette and Victor Garber. I was on what they call the short list.
I know the short list well.
That's the worst thing you could be on, the short list.
Yeah.
In which they say, oh, yeah, we're thinking of you. And then 2 weeks later, they say, well, they're offering it to another actor, right? So after twice, I don't play Vandergelder. And I have to tell you, I went opening night to see Hello, Dolly, and it had to be pretty good for me to like it because I was rejected, right?
Right.
I'm sitting, I get invited to almost all of Scott Rudin, and I'm mentioning Scott Rudin because this whole nonsense about, Scott Rudin can't be a part of the theater anymore, even though he employs thousands of people, and even though he's brilliant, and yes, he's a bully, and yes, he's obsessive compulsive, but Jerome Robbins was insane, and he was the greatest director on Broadway. Arthur Lawrence, everybody hated, but he also, contributed a lot to the theater. The theater is not about the nicest person in the room. The theater is about talent, All right. So I get invited to Scott Rudin's openings when he papers. I didn't like Hello, Dolly. I thought it was heartless. I thought it was jokey. One bit after another. Didn't like it. Didn't think that Bette was playing Dolly. She was playing herself. Thought that David Hyde Pierce, who I adore as an actor, was miscast.
David Hyde Pierce was playing Horace Vandergelder?
Yes. Now, you see, but this is part of the business that young people have to understand, or old people have to understand.
I was going to say, I'm too old to be young.
It always comes down to a compromise. Scott Rudin must have thought, Bette is nervous about this. She's, walking the high wire here. She doesn't have to do this. She's a theatrical icon, a sociological phenomenon. She needs somebody who can keep her calm. And who better than David Hyde Pierce, who's just the nicest person. And I think just a wonderful actor. But wrong for Horace Vandergelder.
Yeah.
Right? So now I hear that they're going to do a road company. My agent calls me up. He said, they're doing a road company of Hello, Dolly, and you're on the short list. They said, oh, you get on the short list. From the short list, all right? They want to know if you would do it. I said, well, I would do it. I love the road, and everybody knows that. I would do it if they come up with a decent amount of money, and it depends on who's going to play Dolly. 2 weeks later, I hear it's Betty Buckley. Now, Betty Buckley is a brilliant actress and a great chanteuse. This is what I believed before I worked with Betty, who I absolutely adore. But at the time, I thought, this is crazy. You're supposed to be an anti-comedian to play this part. I don't think Betty's funny. And so I basically wrote Jerry, and I said, I'm taking myself off the short list. You cast Betty in that role. I think comedically, I can't keep up with her. And I think that you should hire Michael Moriarty to play Vandergelder, trying to come up with the person who had the least sense of humor in all of show business.
I didn't even know he was still around.
Yeah, so I basically told them to go fuck themselves. And of course, 2 weeks later, they offered me the role. Now, it turned out great. I adore Betty Buckley. I thought she was wonderful as Dolly. She's such a fabulous actress that even though she's not an innately funny person, she so understood who that character was, this optimistic force of nature. And when Betty Buckley talks or sings, she compels you to listen. And she's
certainly when
really
she
star
sings,
quality. And we would do, we did the last scene, I think we did differently than anybody has ever done it, in which the New York musical director named Andy Einhorn, he gave me a note, a suggestion when we were teching in Utica, New York, because I had done this part before. I'd even done the matchmaker with Andrea Martin. And when I did the reprise at the end of Hello, Dolly, I kind of did a vaudeville, a little Satchmo, hello, Dolly. And he said, don't do it. Do it like you're talking. I'm not saying you should talk it, sing it, but just do it like you're talking. And what I did, because Vandergelder has to do a 180, he's pissed off. He goes up, gives the money to, Cornelius and Barnaby and then he has to come down and he has to be in love with Dolly.
The epiphany. And I realized that the thing about his relationship with Dolly is from a know-it-all perspective, that, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? He realizes that Dolly's smarter than he is, and that all of life that she champions is about abundance and happiness, all right? And so when I came down the stairs and I asked her to marry me in a very contentious way, still, I chose to sing the song the same way as I chose to do the scene, which was cut out all vocal affectation. Be you, like I'm being you with me, with you now. Just be you. And because what she has done is she has reduced Horace Vandergelder to infantilism. And so he is a child, totally vulnerable. Well, this was a love scene that Betty and I did night after night. And as a character actor, I haven't done a lot of love scenes. You never really get a chance to kiss a girl. And there were nights where I would look at Betty and I think, Betty Buckley has fallen in love with Louis Stadlen. It's obvious. And then as soon as the curtain would hit the deck, she would go, oh my God, I was so exhausted that I thought I was going to throw up right on the stage. And I thought, that's great acting. Betty is a great actress, and I adore her, and it was a privilege to work with her. When you did you know Jerry before you did the Road Company of Guys and Dolls? Because I know you had a bad audition, and they were like,
This is my drugstore analysis of the situation. We both started out at the same time, and Jerry admired me, but I think that he was also a little pissed off that I was more successful than he was when he was an actor. And that's all, everybody's envious of everybody in this business, unfortunately. Not now. Now I look back and I go, why did I not like that actor? That actor is great. Michael Douglas is great. Why was I pissed off at Kevin Kline? Kevin Kline is great, but you're just trying to climb that mountain. I had a reputation of being difficult. And Jerry, when he became a director, he I don't think had an overwhelming desire to hire me. One time, I met him on the street, and he was going to do The Front Page, which is a play I loved and which I just did a few years ago with Nathan. And show you the self-destructive stuff that an actor can do. he wanted me to come in and audition for one of the reporters. And I got there, and I said, "Can I audition for Hildy Johnson?" Which is one of the two leads.
Right.
He said, "All right." And I read very well. And he said, "Thanks. Thanks a lot for complicating my life." And it was because they were going to hire Richard Thomas. He knew it. They needed a star. And he must have thought, well, so if I now give him one of the reporters, he's going to be disappointed that he didn't get to play Hildy Johnson. So, that's a stupid thing. You don't do that when you audition for a director. You don't say, I want to be another character than the one you have me in here auditioning for. That's a rule. Another good rule is, if you learn the material when you're auditioning for a director, don't ever put down the script. Where they think you're giving a performance instead of an audition.
Yep.
All right, so I auditioned for the national company. I didn't have a pot to pee in 1992. I was coming off a relationship that was destined to end, and I wasn't feeling real good about myself, and I had no money, and I auditioned very badly. I hadn't seen the revival of Guys and Dolls, which was another stupid thing. And then I went in and auditioned for it, and I didn't really know the style, and I wasn't good. And Nathan, who I had done one other play with, Moon Over Miami, a John Guare play. We did it at Williamstown. He said, "How did Lewis do?" And Jerry said, "Not good, not spontaneous, not good." And he said, "Give him another shot at it." He said, "He's not feeling good about himself. I know that. Give him another shot." He said, "He'd be great as Nathan, Detroit." Out of sheer desperation, they had me in again. They were going to go out on the road like within a month, and they couldn't find a Nathan Detroit. Well, I went to see it before I went and auditioned, and I remember sitting in the fifth row, a Saturday matinee, and I started to cry in the middle of it. As I cried last night watching TCM Showboat, I was weeping my eyes out the whole time. And I thought, if you can't be in this, you don't deserve to be in show business anymore. This is your meat, man. And this is a great production. And I went in again for an hour. Jerry had me doing every, adjustment he could think of. And, he's got all these teeth, I like to I could see all he's thinking is, oh, I wish he was Nathan Lane. He's not Nathan Lane. And, but I knew that I had acquitted myself very, very well. And after an hour, I walked off the stage, and the woman, Pat Kennedy, who was going to be one of the ladies in the Salvation Army, she went, this. And I said, I don't know. I don't think that guy gets me. Well, they told me that I was very much on the short list again. And but then my agent called and told me that they had offered it to a star. I said, can I ask who the star is? And they said, well, you have, I'll tell you, but you haven't heard it from me. I said, well, then who is the star? They said, John Rubinstein. I said, John Rubinstein?
John Rubens? Pippin?
The star? I said, he said, well, he's a bigger star than you are. I said, not to my mother, he's not. And obviously, John didn't want to open in Hartford and then go to Hershey for a week, and he turned it down, and they gave it to me. You see, the thing about that road company of Guys and Dolls was they had booked it before the show was a success on Broadway. So for the first 6 months, we only did 1 and 2 weekers. And then finally, we went to San Francisco, and we were there for 4 weeks, Washington for 5. But we started off playing cities that road companies go to die in, But at that point, I was a very good Nathan Detroit. And again, I was channeling Nathan, and I was channeling Sam Levine, who played it originally.
I was going to say earlier, I meant for those who did not know, when you were talking about Sam, that he had been the original Nathan Detroit opposite Robert Alda. So, yeah. I can absolutely see you in that role.
I love doing it.
It's another of the ones I've always wanted to play too, and have not had the opportunity. Then, and I don't know where the hell I was. I completely missed you on the road with the producers playing Max Bialystock. How the hell did that happen?
Well, that's a good story too, in that when we were doing The Man Who Came to Dinner, Nathan said to me, they're going to do a musical of the producers. And he wanted me to play the German, Franz. I know he did. And he said, what do you think of that? I said, I think it's a terrible idea. He said, why? I said, well, I've worked with Mel Brooks. He's very difficult. And you yourself said that a musical that I won't mention that was directed by Susan Stroman was so diffuse that you didn't even know who was talking. Said the two of them, that's going to be a bad mix. And why would you want to do it? Nobody's going to be better than Zero Mostel. And he got really mad at me. He said, oh, so if they offered you Max Bialystock in the musical, you wouldn't do it? I said, no, I wouldn't. I would not do it. Right. And then I go and see it in previews, and they're, just about to open. And I walked into his dressing room and I went, Louis J. Stadlen is wrong again. All right. Well, the people who produced that show, and Mel and Susan Stroman, convinced themselves that nobody could play those two roles but Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick. They convinced themselves. And they had booked the tour for like 2 years. And they didn't have anybody to do it. And again, last minute. It's like, Robert Preston was, their 10th choice to do The Music Man. All the jobs that I've gotten in my career, I'm always the second, third, fourth choice. So when Mel recognized my name, he asked me to do the song of The King of Old Broadway, which is very complicated with 1 million lyrics. And they gave me 7 days to learn it. And I thought, I won't be able to learn it. Well, I went to the music director to work on it. And he was going on about, the people who are coming in for Max Bialystock, it's like they're doing Eugene O'Neill. Nobody knows how to do the Mel Brooks comedy. I said, I know how to do the Mel Brooks comedy. The Mel Brooks comedy is the Bob Hope comedy, that you are the butt of the joke, that you are the heroic fool. You are the heroic coward. Today's comedy is about, there's nothing wrong with me. It's society that's full of shit. I said, I know how to do the Mel Brooks comedy, but I'm worried about this song. I don't think I could remember all the lyrics. He said, then read it. I said, I could read it? He said, yeah, read it. And of course, once I knew that I could read it, I basically knew it, And then I went in and I got it. And then, of course, negotiating the money was a different situation. I played them like a violin. I made a lot of money on that tour, but and I had a great time. And I had the best. I've had the two best Leo Blooms, Don Stevenson and Alan Ruck.
Oh, you had Alan Ruck. I worked for 1 week with Alan Ruck on Spin City. So yeah, he's a nice guy.
Great.
I am so pissed off about that though. I can find everybody on YouTube who's ever played that role except you. And I wanted to see you doing The King of Broadway, because I love that song. I don't know why in God's name they cut it out of the film.
The film, please. The film's like the worst film ever made. It's just so terrible. But these great performances are these great actors, it's so terrible. And the reason why it's terrible is because, first of all, Susan Stroman doesn't know anything about making a movie, and she doesn't have any of the humility that Bob Fosse had, in which he said, I don't know anything about movie making, so teach me. Let me be with the editor, let me be with the cinematographer. So that for the whole first part of the movie, you're looking at their steps, at the feet. There isn't a close-up in that film until Ula and Matthew sing that song, that love song that was in the second act. It's a terrible movie.
But at least it gives you a flavor of what Nathan and Matthew did together. Not like live, because I've watched so many clips of them doing it live, especially when they came back and started cracking each other up on stage.
I hate that shit.
I was sitting there going, wow, this is,
Well, that's what Matthew was doing. I mean, he was doing that whole thing. I mean, with that little voice and everything. And again, I think that Matthew is absolutely marvelous on film, not that film, but on film. And you should have seen Don Stevenson and Alan Ruck. They were great. They were more Gene Wilder. They were themselves. They were great. Is the only word.
Yeah, well, it's like you can't replace Zero, you can't replace Gene Wilder, and then you can't replace Nathan Lane, but you can, because we all know
replaceable. The greatest actors in the whole world are replaceable. Babe Ruth was replaceable.
Mickey Mantle was replaceable.
Absolutely.
Tom Seaver was replaceable. Not really, but
necessarily as good, but replaceable.
Yeah, but and you got to do it on Broadway for a while too, didn't you?
I did, but I wasn't happy about it. I knew when I was. See, that's another thing that's strange about me. Most actors would go, "Oh boy, I don't have to continue on the road. I can go play Broadway." I loved the National Company of the Producers. The National Company of the Producers was far superior at that stage than the Broadway production, which was tired and in its second year. And people had experienced it as a sociological phenomenon, and now it was just a long run. Our show was going from city to city, and we were, the cat's pajamas in every city. They were so excited that the producers were coming to Minneapolis and San Francisco and, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. So I loved working with the people in the National Company. I had been told that I was only going to do it for 9 months, and they were bringing Jason Alexander and Marty Short in, and they were hoping to do the show for like 2 years, sit down in LA. Well, again, Jason, I love Jason. He's a wonderful, wonderful actor. Marty Short, brilliant. They didn't play the roles. They played their celebrity. Mm. And I understand why people do that, because when you're on the fast track, when you're A-list fast track celebrities, you're always thinking of perpetuating your career, of staying up there. After Candide, and I didn't work very much after that for a few years, or not in A projects anyway. I gave that up. I thought, I don't want to expend that much effort in being a star. I'm an actor, and a damn good one. But I want to be. And I remember Stella Adler said, when I was a kid, she said to the class, "What do you want to be, darlings? Do you want to be an actor? Or do you want to be a star? Or do you want to be an actor?" And I thought, well, that's a silly thing. If you're a star, you get to play all the good parts. And then I realized what she meant. And when I was playing Max Bialystock, everywhere we went, it said Louis J. Stadlen above the title. In the producers. On Broadway, Louis J. Stadlen, big billboard in Times Square, Louis J. Stadlen. And I thought, all right, I'm glad I accomplished that. but that is not anything that I am going to kill myself to perpetuate. So when I got to, when I left the company, I said, I'll go to Broadway. I had them over a barrel. They were stupid. They were so stupid. It was unbelievable.
You're not supposed to say that where they could possibly hear.
I don't care about that.
Too late now, anyway.
Too late. I said, I'll do it on Broadway, but then I want to go back to the national company. And they said, fine. And so I went to Broadway, and then you have this situation in which you're acting with people who are like ghosts. They're in the same costumes as the people that I've been doing it with for 9 months, but they're different people. And I just didn't enjoy it as much because there wasn't that same energy. So that was the circumstance. It's like the same thing. Like after I had made a lot of money when I did the producer, so I thought, I want a luxury car. I've never had a luxury car. So then I bought a Jaguar, and it was gorgeous. It looked like a sculpture, And then after 2 years, I thought, okay, I did that. I'm going to buy a Prius.
See, for me, that would be a luxury car.
No, buy a Camry. It's better. Yeah.
All right, so we've gone. My God, we've gone through everything. What's next? Your book. Now, is the book coming from where the last one ended, or are we concentrating on the recent?
It's about my year on the road with Hello, Dolly, about what it took to be cast as Vandergelder, much of the things that I told you about being initially on the short list, and it's about my experience in the 26 cities that we played. But you can't just, talk about the demographics of a city. It gets, rather tedious and repetitive. So it's a memory book, because with the exception of Greenville, South Carolina, and Costa Mesa, California, I have played all those cities quite a few times. So it's not only what my experience was in the present tense of doing Hello, Dolly, but all the memories that it brings back of other performances, other productions, other relationships that I've had in these cities. What's coming up next is I taught at the North Carolina School of the Arts for a short period of time. I directed a Gorky play there, and I taught the seniors in acting for like one semester. And one of my students is the artistic director of the Flint Repertory Company. And we had been talking for a number of years about my playing Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman.
Oh, wow.
We were going to do it. And then COVID. So I am scheduled to do it in the spring of 2022. But I said to Michael, Michael, I'm going to be 75 years old. That's exactly twice as old as Lee J. Cobb was when he did it on Broadway.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I have the vitality. It's 4 weeks rehearsal, 2 weeks performance. I would also love to play Sobriakov in Uncle Vanya. That's a part that I really would like to play. There is no particular production. I haven't been cast in that, but that is something that I would like to play. Other than that, I'm not going to be proactive anymore. I am edging towards semi-retirement. If somebody asks for me, if Nathan wants me to be in a play he's in, if I believe in the project, I would definitely do it. But I am not going to be proactive anymore. I feel like I don't have much more to prove, and I'm enjoying my leisure. And in 20 days, I have rented a place in Asheville, North Carolina,
yeah,
with the idea of actually relocating there. So
It's
that's
a beautiful city.
beautiful.
Great restaurants, very artsy, very, very nice. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's the nicest place in North Carolina. So I can understand why that would look good. Do you have any desire to direct some more?
I'm a very good director. Everything that I've directed has been successful, except I directed Ian Finkel in his show, and he wouldn't listen to me. But that's the Finkel, that's the brand, the Finkel brand, The problem that I always had with that was, and I'm too old to play the game, when you're dealing with producers who, saying, we're going to do Fiddler on the Roof, but we're not going to use the turntable. And then you go, brilliant. That's a brilliant idea. I didn't have that capability. So I didn't, pursue it with the proper vigor. But I love to direct, and it also exercises such a different, as you know, it exercises a totally different aspect of your talent.
Yeah.
There has to be a certain amount of impatience, I think, involved in acting, and the very opposite is true. When you direct, you have to be so patient and so nurturing.
Well, there's also and I know you know this, working with people who have been trained in all these different techniques. Okay, I'm a Strasberg, I do sense memory. I'm going to go out on stage and I'm going to do 5 minutes of this as a sense memory. Someday I have to tell you the funniest sense memory story ever heard. It's when I realized that something was not right there for me. I felt, like the ice cream cone in chorus line melting. It was not good. But
I don't allow that. I tell you what I do. And I got this from Jerry Friedman, who was a wonderful director. I did The Seagull with him. And he cast me as Trigorin. And not many people would cast me as Trigorin. He's usually cast as a rake, a seducer. And he wrote a fabulous letter to me and every other actor in the cast. We did it at the Great Lakes Great Lakes Theater Festival in Cleveland. He said, I don't think that Trigorin is a seducer. He's a writer. And he hasn't experienced a lot. What he does is he sees other people's lives, and then he runs back to his bungalow and he writes a short story about it. And now, all of a sudden, you are being seduced by two powerful women. Kadna, who's, Stella Adler, basically, and this young, wonderful, gorgeous, talented thing who you think you're seducing her, and you are, but only because she's giving you an opening. And I thought has been so instructive that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, before we start rehearsal, at least give the actors that I'm working with the blueprint of who I think they are, and then run with it. And I think all actors, I remember William Hutt, who was basically the Sir Laurence Olivier, even though I think there are better English actors than Sir Laurence Olivier, but Sir Laurence Olivier is he's the king of English actors of Canada. And Bill Hutt said that one of the problems was because he is so well thought of, that directors were afraid to give him direction. And he said, everybody needs help.
Absolutely. Louis, I'm realizing we've been talking now for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It feels like 15 minutes.
It's been very enjoyable.
I could do this forever. I am so grateful to you for coming on, uh, sharing your career. Uh, I I'm going to, when we're done, go upstairs and start jumping up and down and going. I know you don't look at yourself as this star, this great, but you are you're the person they call the actor's actor. You are a great character actor. And I don't think I can give any higher praise than that. I have seen you do so many different things and am in awe of your ability to transform yourself.
Thank you. And I have to say that actor's actor thing, I know that very well because I've said that to two people. I remember going to Sardi's, and Roland Winters and Mort Marshall, both who were in Minnie's Boys, were sitting with David Wayne.
Oh, wow. David Wayne.
David Wayne. I said, David Wayne, you are an actor's actor. And I felt the same way about Matthew Broderick's father. He was also an actor.
James Broderick, yes.
Broderick.
Well, I want you to know my dream is, before you retire permanently, is to have the chance to work with you. But if nothing else, we've done this, and this is work, and it's together. So I think we did pretty well. So Louis, thank you.
Pleasure.
I please, if you do something, let me know. I will go wherever to see you in it, whatever it is.
And hopefully we'll meet in person, not virtually someday.
All have I.
Yeah. There are worse things than talking about yourself for 2 hours. That's for sure.
I salute you, sir.
All right.
Take care, Louis. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. I mean, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, or even half as much as I did. It's not often you get to talk to your heroes, and Louis is a man I have emulated since, as I said, early last week, since 1974. He's one of the great theatrical talents our country has, and I am proud to be able to call him my friend now. So there you go. Now, I did promise that I would be doing something more political. So here we go. On a Saturday, Saturday, July 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am going to try to do my first live cast on YouTube, and I want you to join me. I'm going to take all the political crap that I have been going crazy about, taking notes about, writing about, and I'm going to put it all into one show. Now, this is an experiment because I haven't done a live broadcast on YouTube before. So I'm hoping this works, because if it works and enough of you come and watch the show, we'll do it again. And if it works 2 times, then we'll start having guests on with us and audience participation. Wouldn't you like to be able to ask someone like Louis, a question? I would, but I already did. So we'll ask somebody else. In any event, the date again for our first live cast on YouTube is Saturday, July 17th at 3 p.m. Please join me for that. And I will now end the show with our usual commercial. We have a World According to Yoni pages on Facebook and Twitter. The Facebook page is maintained and overseen by a lovely young lady named Carolyn Anderson, who is doing me one of the greatest favors by saving me from having to spend hours and hours and hours on Facebook. So please, if you have received a friend request on Facebook from Carolyn, accept it. If you haven't, how about friending her? She's handling not just The World According to Yoni, she's handling the film company my wife and I own, Solar Films. She's handling the films we're working on, and soon she's going to be handling our theater company. So she's taking a lot on for us, and I really appreciate it and want her to know that. But I want you to go like the pages, the Facebook page especially, but on Twitter as well, because on Twitter, I'm still handling a lot of that, so you can speak to me directly, assuming you would like to. Other than that, I'm trying to think if there's anything other than that. There's been a lot happening lately, and while I said I'm not going to do politics today, I'm not going to do politics today. However, I want everybody to remember this pandemic is not over. Believe me, I'm a prime example of it, and the effect it has on people is not good. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. It could save your life. And I would like your life to be saved because I'd like you to come back here and keep watching my show or listening to my show on your favorite podcast network. And if you'd like to, send us an email, you can reach me at accordingtoyoni@gmail.com. Other than that, I give you my usual ending. Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and be happy. I don't know why, but be happy. You can bring happiness to yourself and others. I'm trying to do it for myself, which is why I keep repeating it. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.